Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for coming here this afternoon. For weeks before I do this talk, I think about what I want to tell you, because so many of you have been to hear me so many times. And this is a process as we learn about conservation. And one of the things I really want you to leave today with is that we cannot save lions or anything else if we don't concentrate on community development. Because people who are the poorest people in Africa are living with this wildlife, and they can't care when they don't know what they're going to eat for supper. And so that's really my message to you today. There's a place where lions lie under 4,000-year-old paintings, and where elephants are dwarfed by granite inselbergs that rise up above the Miombo woodlands, and where the ancestors of people are believed to reside in the mists that rise up over the rivers in the mornings, and in the biggest trees like the baobabs, and in the mountains, these spirit mountains or inselbergs. And this is a place that so few of you know about. It's bigger than Switzerland. It's bigger than Denmark. It's a place that no one is really paying attention to, and yet it is one of the most important wilderness areas left in Africa today. Yet it is a place where there are 40,000 people living inside the protected area. And I grew up in South Africa, where I thought that fortress conservation, where you had people on one side and you had wildlife on the other, was the way that you did conservation. Well, this place has turned it all on its head. It is a place where the normal ideas about conservation don't work. And yet it is an incredible wilderness. And today we think that wilderness doesn't have people in, or perhaps it's just because our definition of wilderness has become something other than it was. Because people have always been in Africa, and people have always been with wildlife. This is Niassa National Reserve. It is in northern Mozambique, on the border with Tanzania, and is managed by the Wildlife Conservation Society in partnership with the government of Mozambique. It's the biggest wilderness area in Mozambique and one of the most important wilderness areas left in Africa. 16,000 square miles, 42,000 square kilometers. There are so few places left like this. And this is where Keith and I, who founded this project, have decided to dedicate our lives. And just to orientate you, it's on the eastern seaboard side of Africa, between the sea and Lake Malawi. It's right on the border with Tanzania, and many of the people there speak Swahili. Yet people can't seem to decide whether it belongs in southern Africa or East Africa. There are 800 to 1,000 lions living in Niassa. I can't tell you how many exactly. It's impossible to count them. This is one of only 6 populations of this size left in the world today. Lions are in very serious trouble, and it still amazes me that so few people understand this. I know that many of you have already been to Shivani's talk, and she spoke about this. We have to pay attention. This is just the red is where the lions used to be, and the yellow is where lions are today. And you look at that, they've lost 92% of their range. And imagine if 92% of this audience got up and left the room, or 92% of your house disappeared overnight. 92% of the range. There are only 20,000 lions left in the world today. And if we are going to do this, and if our children are going to have lions, then we need to get a move on. And one of the things I wanted to say to you is that this is a conversation that I am having with you today. It's not action. And action, we need all of you to help us with, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. I found this quote the other day and thought it is exactly how I feel, that the more I sense the miracle, the more intense appears the tragedy. I've spent my whole adult life with animals in wilderness, and yet I can see them disappearing in front of me, and it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for all of us. I know that Elon Musk was talking about going to Mars. Do we really want to live on Mars? It's a wonderful idea to be innovative. But do we want to live on Mars when we are the only species that's going to be there? What is that going to mean for all of us when there's nothing there but humans? I think that we need to protect the world that we have, my planet and your planet, before we decide that we want to go somewhere else. I'd like to tell you a story, and many of you who follow us on Facebook already know the story. This is about a lion called Fatima. I've known her since she was born in September 2006. She was one of 3 cubs, and her mother, these were the first cubs we ever saw in Niassa Reserve. And about 2 months ago, Anti-Poaching Scout told us that they'd seen a lion with a snare on her paw. It took us a while to figure out which lioness this was. And when we went in, we were able to dart her, hoping we could get the snare off, and realized that she had been speared through her lungs, and there was nothing that we could do. Fatima died, and we brought her back to our camp. Our entire staff, or most of our staff, come from a local village around there. This is a dead lion, and I think you can tell from the way that they are carrying her that they care. They didn't just pull her out of the truck. Our staff was there and carried her out there, and everyone was very upset. What we found out later was that Fatima had been caught in a bushmeat snare, caught for wild meat. The hunter had found her in the snare, and then had decided that perhaps she would be worth some money for her skin, her teeth, her claws, and her bones. And this is the story of lions all over Africa. She's the known. She's someone who we knew her name, and it was devastating for everybody. But there are many lions out there that are the unknown and the unnamed, and we can't follow them all. We couldn't protect Fatima, who we knew. So protecting all the unnamed requires a different type of conservation. And I also believe that it requires us focusing on all the species and focusing on wilderness areas, not just lions. Because while I'm here today to talk to you about lions, I don't just care about lions. I care about elephants. I took this leaning out a plane that my husband Keith, who's just got his license, was flying the other day. This gives me joy to see elephants. We've lost 7,000 elephants. My daughter sees as many dead elephants at the same time she sees live elephants. I know you don't want to see pictures like this, but we see them every day. And until we can stop this, we need to be able to show people what's happening, and we need to care. Many of you too know the story about P, the pangolin. We were asked to help rescue a pangolin from Nampula in the middle of Mozambique. A female and a tiny baby were confiscated. They contacted the warden of the reserve, and he contacted us and said, could we help? We had just managed through WCN donors to get an aeroplane. Keith flew down to Nampula, brought P and his mother back to our camp. Unfortunately, the mother never unrolled, and we were left with a 2.8 kilogram pangolin, which took us 9 months to hand rear before we could release P. And many of you followed us on that journey with a scout called Mccarthy, who every night for 9 months took this pangolin walking in the bush, armed with he had his rifle and a torch, and would take P, the pangolin, off into the bush until he could fend for himself. We care about pangolins, we care about lions, we care about all the small creatures, because we care about wilderness. But I also care about people. And until conservation starts to look at human well-being, when people are having school outside under a mango tree, when people are still suffering from leprosy and cholera and measles and many of these treatable diseases, we can't do conservation. So the human side of the story is very important. And humans and people in Niassa are exactly the same as you and me. They have aspirations. They want a motorbike. They want a cell phone. They want a future. They want to be able to make their world and their life exactly the same as you and I do. And we have to be very careful that we don't go against human rights, because conservation has a terrible reputation. And one of the reasons so many of our conservation areas don't have people in is because all the people were removed a long time ago and we have forgotten about it. So I think it is very important to always keep your humanity. And remember that the poorest people in Africa are living with the wildlife, and we need to help make this possible. Of course, there are these increasing threats, and Niassa is a crazy place. One year I'll come and tell you about one, and every year they just seem to increase. Logging, mining, bushmeat snaring, trade in lion bones, ivory, skins, it goes on and on. Yet when we catch a person, this is a suspected elephant poacher, and you have him with you, you cannot hate him. And I defy anybody who is here to meet the people and to not realize that they're human like you and I. And sometimes on our Facebook page, I'm horrified by the comments of people when we catch poachers, because these are people trying to make their way in the world. In 2014, we arrested 250 illegal gold miners. In 2015, we arrested 1,500. This year, we've already arrested 2,500, and it's increasing, and that is in just one really small area of Niassa Reserve. But again, these are who they are. And you ask them, why are you gold mining? Because they don't have any other option. And it's like gambling, you're hoping for a better future. And so these are the kind of people we need to listen to and find a way to find solutions for coexistence with lions and leopards and all the other wildlife.
Niassa Reserve in northern Mozambique stretches 16,000 square miles or 42,000 square kilometers. It is the largest protected area in Mozambique. The 40,000 people living in the reserve live a subsistence lifestyle largely based on agriculture. Despite measures to keep wildlife out of their fields, they still manage to get through fences and cause crippling damage to the people's food supplies. Elephants are despised for the damage they do to crops.
Andari ese radishi basari ali boy.
In a desperate attempt for food, villagers set snares to catch wild animals for meat. But these simple wire snares have a devastating effect on wildlife, big or small. Lions are not targeted for food, but regularly get caught up in these snares. Many of Niassa's lions carry the scars of these damaging wire traps, and when injured, the lions become an even greater danger to people. Accidental snaring of lions is by far the largest threat to Niassa's lion population, and the Niassa Carnival Project works hard to reduce this threat. On rare occasions, villagers will report lions caught in snares, and sometimes we are able to release these lions. We remove the snares and treat the wounds with an antiseptic spray. We hope these lions can make a full recovery, but often we don't find the lions caught in the snares. Anti-Poaching Scouts on the project are constantly searching for and removing wire snares. They're also persistently on the lookout for the individuals involved, as this practice is illegal. Hunters earn an income from snaring, and people want red meat protein. The same individuals who have lost their crops to wildlife lay bushmeat snares to prevent starvation. We know that the only long-term solution is to provide alternative livestock as well as different means to make money. Our small livestock breeding programs focus on rabbits, ducks, and guinea fowl. We also assist the farmers to build elephant beehive fences to keep elephants out of their croplands. This also provides honey that the farmers can sell under an elephant-friendly label to provide an income for the village.
To give you an idea of it, sometimes with video it's easier to show you what Niassa looks like rather than just pictures, and to understand the people that are living there and why they do what they do. They're not the enemy. I think that Niassa's people are an asset and that we can work within. And our vision is a wilderness where lions and other wildlife thrive with the full participation of Niassa's people. We have an incredible team, and I always feel slightly overwhelmed because I am here today to represent them. So please, when you see me, see them. We have 50 Mozambicans that are on our permanent staff, and over 80 to 100 seasonal staff, of which 75% of them come from the local villages. Everybody trains somebody else. We have a very strong mentorship program. When you have someone under you, you mentor them into your position. Very strong training. We send everybody on training. Many of our staff are illiterate, and so we send them to practical training opportunities, whether it's to an ecotourism lodge, to learn to make beds and look after tourists, or learning mechanics. These are some of our team, and there are some women on it now. We're a diverse group, but there is something that binds us all, and that is that we are all passionate about Niassa and passionate about its wildlife. Keith and I, and our two children, Ella and Finn, who are now 9 and 7 years old, and many of you have seen them grow up in the pictures over the years. Our family is growing up in Niassa. Our children speak the local languages. Their best friends are from Niassa Reserve, and we have dedicated our lives to this place and this project. And we live in a very simple camp out of choice. People keep asking us why we don't build a house. But it's because we want to be connected to the wilderness in which we live. We want to hear the lions at night. We want to have elephants in our camp. We want to feel it because that is what makes it important to us. We live on a bamboo deck under a sausage tree in a mozzie dome net. We have no cement in our camp, and we hope that one day when we do leave, it will all just disappear into the bush. And something I wanted to say to you today to give you hope is that never underestimate the influence that changing one person's life can have. Because sometimes when you look at what has to be done, it is almost impossible to understand how you can make a difference. But this is Florinda. She's one of our best duck and rabbit breeders. She's holding in her hand money, which is the first money that she has ever earned. And she is, just like in Silicon Valley, you have the innovators and the entrepreneurs. She is the innovator and the entrepreneur, and we are now building her bigger hutches so that she can become a producer. So she can produce these ducks and rabbits to provide protein for people in her village, and at the same time earn an income. In every livelihood group that we have, and we have more than 100 households involved over 5 villages, we have entrepreneurs. And you know what entrepreneurs are like. You come from a place which is full of them, and there are entrepreneurs in these villages too that will be the people that save Niassa. But most of all, we listen. We are constantly talking to the villagers. We are constantly having meetings so that we can understand what their needs are, and we can better form our conservation programs to meet those needs. Many of you too have seen the progress of our environmental center, which this is the construction crew that you can see up here. These are the men from Mbamba village who had no skills in construction that have built a center that is now fully operational, that is beautiful and busy and exactly what we need. And we have people coming in all the time. We feed about 50 or 60 people for lunch every day. All our staff eat together, plus all the children, plus the adults that are coming in. We have accommodation for all the local children and adults that come and spend 6-day bush visits with us in Niassa. Everywhere you look, you can see the influence of the people who built the camp. And over this past year, we have had courses in design for women, design and craft, so they can learn new skills. We have got a group called the rigor group, which means to come together, where they are learning design with all their local materials so that we can sell them and kind of an income. We take a truck filled with stickers of animals out to all the villages in Niassa and bring the children of Niassa into a beautiful place. And one of our aims was always to put the environmental center in a place that could be used for ecotourism. Because often people put environmental centers in the worst places and outside the reserve and expect that to inspire the children, while the ecotourists stay in the best place. We've put it in a drop-dead, gorgeous place to inspire the children about the place in which they live. And these kids learn about what happened to the elephants. These are 77 elephant skulls that have been collected just in 580 square kilometers in the area that we manage since 2010. And people can't visualize what the elephant crisis looks like until you show them a memorial. And we hope that this memorial will just be an example of something that happened, not all that's left of elephants, but we need everybody to be a participant in conservation. And the children love it. We have children that now say they want to be the warden of the reserve. They want to be the president of Mozambique. They ask us how they can stop their parents from eating bushmeat. They are so engaged and so interested, and we have been testing whether they take these messages back to their parents. They come with their teachers. They look through binoculars for the first time. They learn how to draw a map. They learn about the extent of the protected area in which they live. And most of them had no idea beforehand that they lived in a protected area. And when you ask them, how was your trip? Did you enjoy it? They not only comment on the conservation, but they comment on the place. And they really enjoy being there and being with our staff, where they can learn about the birds, they can learn about ways they can contribute to conservation, and they can see wildlife in a way that is non-threatening. Before, they either saw animals as food or something to be scared of. Now they can watch elephants and appreciate them from the safety of the environmental center. But we don't have time to only focus on children, because we will lose Niassa before these children grow up and can have an effect on conservation. So we have adult education courses too in conservation. And this was an amazing workshop that was done this year with the prosecutor, with the head of the police, with the Guardia Frontiera, the border guards, with the Anti-Poaching Scouts, to try and bring everybody together to understand why we were getting no prosecutions when we arrested people, and how we could bring all the adults together to have a common vision of conservation, because often it is simply a lack of communication and a lack of coordination. And now with the Environmental Center, we have a place that can bring people together. And most of all, it's about making conservation fun, because what happens is conservation becomes about saying, no, you can't do that, and you can't do that, and you're going to go to jail, and you're going to get a fine. And we need to make conservation fun for people, and a culture of conservation where they actually want to do it. And one of the most extraordinary things, which is so simple in its essence, is our vegetable garden. We have an incredible camp and logistics manager called Thomas, and he has managed to produce a miracle at the Environmental Center of an incredible vegetable garden, simply using elephant dung and buffalo dung and bat guano as fertilizer. And whenever the communities come in to see us and say they can't grow anything and they can't do anything because the soils are so bad, we hand them over to Thomas, who takes them to the vegetable garden and shows them that it's all possible. And we have our 26 wildlife guardians that represent 30 villages across the reserve. Last year, they recorded 10,000 sightings of special species. They are the ones that are getting their communities to protect their goats. They're all on WhatsApp. And we have a group of WhatsApp wildlife guardians that are sending us information every day. I've seen this bushmeat. What should I do? A lion's come into my village. The other day, they were having a meeting in a village that was in Mavago, which was about 2 days away. And our coordinator sent me a picture of them having the meeting, and I could say to them, put them all in a circle. Don't have them sort of standing in front. And so that was mentorship via WhatsApp, where immediately he was able to tell them to all sit in the circle. So technology is very important, and WhatsApp has been transformational for us to be able to reach people that are so far away, but they can feel that we care and feel that they can send the information to us and that we will respond. We held a first aid course, and some of these things might be so obvious to you, but we have scouts all over the reserve, and none of them had ever received any first aid training. So we got SOS International to come with their Mozambican representative to come to the Environmental Centre and teach the scouts from not only the area that we manage, but the whole of the reserve, for their scout leaders on how to do first aid, what to do if they got shot, what to do if they got bitten by a snake, what to do if they got chased by an elephant. We teach carpentry. And we have these film nights where we have 150 people watching Alan Root's films, which have been translated into Swahili. Because what has happened in the past is these documentaries have reached you and they've reached me, but they haven't reached the people that live with the wildlife. And if there's any reason for making those documentaries, and I know because my husband used to make wildlife documentaries, it is because we need to reach the people who live with the wildlife, because they are the ones that are going to make the most difference. And so you should be asking me, after all this effort, what's happening to the lions, because after all, that's what the whole point is. So the lion population in Niassa is stable at present. I'm a little bit concerned. This was from 2015, that it's starting to decline, and that we have some areas where we're losing lions. It's not as homogeneous as it was. But we're holding our ground. The threats are increasing dramatically. There's no time to rest, but we are having some success. But we did realize that there was something missing. And a lot of what we were doing was us going into a community with our alternative livelihoods or our environmental outreach programs, but we weren't making them our partners in conserving the areas. So in 2012, we took what was for us the very scariest decision, and that was to tender for a concession inside the reserve. So we opened a company in Mozambique, and the 25% shareholders are held by a community of 3,000 people who live inside this area. We wanted to see if we could get it to work if we made them equal partners with us. No paternal conservation. If there was a contract and whether we could do it. We hired Anti-Poaching Scouts from the villages, the village that we are partnering with. We had many meetings to discuss the needs of that community, not our conservation needs, but what did they need? And they spoke to us about food security, employment, education. And one of the major things they said was, we need help to get our children into school. So on our contract, we have 5 responsibilities. They have 5 responsibilities. We get fined if we don't meet our responsibilities. They get their payments stopped if they don't meet their responsibilities. We have an AGM every year where we have to report back what we do. And we started a school food program. And in the first 2 months, we had 124 more children come to school, simply because we provide lunch. And the deal is we provide the food, the parents have to cook it, and the community pays the parents to cook it. We don't believe in charity. Everything comes with benefits and responsibilities, including our own work. We have to report back to you, but we have to report back to the communities that we work with as well. And I know most of you don't understand Portuguese, but this is part of our AGM, where we work out performance payments. The community gets a base fund for honouring a land use line. And then together with them, over the years, we've developed a system of performance payments. For every month an elephant doesn't die, they get $300 into their fund. For every elephant that does die, $250 gets taken off. There are many different performance payments. Every village will have a different one. But this is a way, easily countable, things that we can make the community take responsibility for conservation in the area. Next year, we'll be opening some trails camps for ecotourism. These camps are designed to get money into the communities. There is no investor. The money to build these camps comes from conservation philanthropy. It's all built locally from local materials, no cement, very few nails. The communities will manage them, and all the profits, not a bed night fee, all the profits will go to designated communities because they need to get the benefits from conservation. And I hope one day perhaps next year or the year after, that many of you will come to finally visit us in Niassa and know that you are part of conservation travel. This is not ecotourism. This is a direct benefit to the communities built by them and which they will get the benefits from it. So the human face of conservation is extremely important and something that we take very seriously. And in this concession that we have been managing with the community, our lion population is going up, much higher than it is across the rest of the reserve. 4 new cubs were born the other day, and Samuel and Eusebio came to us with exciting news. These are actually the smallest cubs I've ever seen. So it was very exciting to see them, especially after the horror of Fatima. Our hippo populations have increased. I'm just showing you some of the animals, and our elephant poaching has gone from 25 elephants killed a year to 2. And that is because the community... And that is because the community is taking responsibility. And the bushmeat snaring in the village, it's still carrying on, but it's declined. They're taking much smaller animals, and we've gone down 1,000 kilograms of bushmeat. This is through our intelligence networks. So even our livestock breeding programs are having an effect. And we should be asking these questions. If we're pouring all this money into these conservation programs, is it having an effect? And so the monitoring is a very important part of what we do. And most importantly, we had chiefs arriving. This is Shefe Mnamaluma from a little village called Nkuti, coming to our camp and asking, please, can I partner with you? Please, can I be part of this program to include the communities? And so we've now been asked to take over another 1,500 square kilometers with 6 villages, which are essential for Niassa Reserve because they risk splitting the reserve into east and west. It is a nightmare area with huge poaching and huge challenges, but we think that this model and part of our scaling up has a lot of potential to save Niassa into the future. And now that we have in position an environmental center, our team, my husband Keith has just got his pilot's license, we're able to fly, we are in the position to be able to take on these extra areas. And conservation is made up of many small moments that give you hope. And just 3 weeks ago, we got a call of another pangolin, and Keith was able to hop in the plane, come fetch the pangolin from 2 hours away, bring the pangolin back to Niassa. We looked after her for the night to see that she was okay, and release her. Those small moments mean a lot to all of us, I think. And so we had a scout selection course. We had 20 places. 130 young men from the communities around us came to try out for those scout positions. Many of them, or several of them, we knew were major poachers in that group. And so there is hope, and people are starting to see conservation as a future for them. We see new lions on our camera traps. We also see communities dancing for us in front of our camera traps. And you know that many people have a problem with their camera traps being stolen. Not in this area. They give us a dance. And so that really made me smile the one morning when I saw this, which actually went on for about 60 pictures. They basically made the batteries flat, but it was very cool to see this response from them to us to just say hi. And now I just want to, we're nearly done. That just show you that small actions make magic happen. And this is our Lion Fun Days, which we do every year in November. I think it speaks for itself. I'm going to take a break and just let you watch for a couple of minutes of what happens when a culture of conservation starts to come together. You see, lions become part of everything. And that's when you know you're starting to win, because lions are part of a dance group, and lions are part of school theatre, and lions are part of everything. And that's when you know that something's starting to happen. This is my son Finn with his best friend Amina reading about primates, and Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall, and she's a little girl from Mbaba village. And that's when you see conservation starting to happen. But we need to make this happen. And the other message I have for you is the government of Mozambique, or these governments in these countries, can't do it. And the communities can't pay for it. And the wildlife can't pay for it. I don't buy this if it pays, it stays anymore. I've gone through that whole trajectory with Keith. The wildlife cannot pay for it because there isn't enough in ecotourism or sport hunting or whatever that you want to do. And so all the people in the world that care are going to need to do that. And if we pay, it stays. And that is what I think we need, a global conservation culture that decides that these species and these places are important, and we want them, and we are going to make this happen, and not expect other people to do this for us. And I think other people will say, well, that's not sustainable. It is sustainable, because your caring doesn't stop today. Your children's children are still going to care about that. And we just have to make that leap of faith that it doesn't have to be economically sustainable. It has to be sustainable because we will always care. And then the lions can do what lions do, and they don't need to earn their keep. They just need to sleep in the sun for 18 hours a day, or whatever it is that lions do. And then the wilderness areas, with everything else that lions represent, will also still be there, because after all, it's not just about the lions. It's about a little new species of frog that was found at our environmental center last year. All the ones that we don't have WCN partners coming to you to talk about, because they're not charismatic enough, or we simply don't know enough about them. But we do care. We care about the whole system. And it's all about collaboration. And I think the thing that gives me the most hope is that there are signs that finally everybody is letting go of their ego and is starting to collaborate. And this is, Pride is something that I'm very proud to be a founding member of, with 6 of us leading conservation projects in Africa from 5 projects, 4 countries, working in 30% of lion range. 3 of us are here today, Shivani, Amy, and myself. I know there is the Uganda Carnival Project is outside. The African People and Wildlife Fund, who also work on lions and alternative livelihoods, are outside too. We work with everybody. We work with everyone that's in this audience today, because that collaboration is what's going to win this. And I know that WCN has a number of plans afoot too for wider collaboration to bring people together for lions. And so really what I want to end with today is to introduce a person on our team who epitomizes this spirit of collaboration. So I am delighted today to introduce you to Andrew Mccarthy, who is our education manager, a teacher from Makula who is now in Palo Alto, San Francisco, which is a pretty extraordinary journey, and he does an incredible job with our Lion scholarships, doing all our education programs, as well as our school lunch programs. So thank you for your patience, and without further ado, I'd like to hand you over just briefly to Andrew, who's just a pleasure to have.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Coleen said, my name is Andrew Mccarthy. I work with Niassa Lion Project. This is my second year. I started in November 2014. The most interesting thing I would like to share with you, because she has talked a little of everything about what we do, the amazing work you do in Niassa province, the amazing work you do in our country, is that before I started working with Coleen, I was a teacher. And I had this passion with wildlife. Because when I was at primary school, I was reading many stories, and our school, the curriculum by that time was talking more about strong animals in the bush. We've got this king of the bush lion. We've got this clever animal in the bush. So I was always interested to know, what are these clever animals? Because I was always listening about these animals, hearing about these animals in the books, but I did not see them on reality. So I got this interest that one day I'd like to live with these animals. I would like to contribute a little bit about wildlife. So when I came to Mekula in 2004, working as a teacher, I started a wildlife club at the school where I was teaching. And this was to share the passion I had in wildlife to children who had never been heard about conservation in Mekula, but they were living inside this protected area. So I started the club, and 2009 is when I met Coleen and Keith, directors of the Niassa Lion Project. And it was amazing that these two amazing people also had an idea to open an environmental center so that children of Niassa would learn about conservation, would learn about coexistence. And this happened. Now I'm with her, and they are running education programs. Now, since she has already said everything, but one program I would like to share that we are doing is scholarship program. Because as she said, if you are doing conservation, if you are doing wildlife conservation, we need also to care about people, because the threats that wildlife face nowadays are all happening because of people. So we noticed that the majority of people who are involved in illegal activities are the youth group of between 15 and 30-year-old, as you see in one of the pictures there on the presentation. So the reason is that these people have no job opportunities, have low education, and they don't have any job opportunities. So we sat down and decided, what can we do? Let's offer scholarship to children who finish primary school to secondary school so that they can go further with their education. They can thereafter have job opportunities. And now we have got 19 children in different secondary schools in different grades. One of them is finishing grade 12 this year, and he's hoping, himself said that he wants to continue to go to university. He wants to become a doctor. So we hope if this child from Mbamba village, which is inside our concession where we are running, becomes a doctor from the benefit from conservation, he will inspire other children from that area. We have got other children in different grades. So whenever we're talking of conservation, we need not only focus to animals or wildlife, but we need also to focus on people who are living with wildlife, because they are them who care of wildlife. So I don't have more to talk because I just came to introduce myself. It's my first time. It's my pleasure to meet you all, people who love wildlife, people who do much effort to make this wildlife exist. So I'm very grateful, because the more you care about wildlife, the more you help the people of Niassa, the more you help Niassa Lion Project, the more the ecosystem of Niassa will exist forever. Thank you.
I'm happy to take questions, but I think you can see that our project's not just about me. And so it's wonderful to have an incredible team with us with such a lot of passion that it makes me feel like this is all possible, and Keith and I are absolutely convinced that we will hand this over to Mozambicans where it should be.